This episode is brought to you by Columbia Sportswear. It's snowing again, and that wind chill is killer. But you're not worried about that because you shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection. It's warmth perfected with tiny gold dots that reflect your body heat inside and protect you from the cold outside. No snow or chilly temps can stop you now. Go out anyway. Shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection now at Columbia.com/infinity.
Max, the one to watch for the best in entertainment, now has live sports with the Bleacher Report sports add-on.
5, 4, 3, 2, I let one go.
Stream hundreds of select live games from MLB.
That's gonna go!
NBA, NHL, U.S. Soccer, and NCAA Men's March Madness.
We just see what we think we just saw!
And it's all included for a limited time with any Max subscription.
He got it!
After the promo period, add it for $9.99 a month. Base subscription required.
Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
Serie Chronicles is a Media Chronicles production.
Hello, Chronicles Tifosi. We need to start this week's Serie Chronicles episode with an apology, an acknowledgement. We know you've missed having Mina and I together for our recordings. We've missed being together for our recordings, to be honest with you. This has been a conversation we've been having ever since the start of this season. We tried the video postcards. We're not necessarily done with the video postcards. It might be a bit of everything going forwards, but we're so excited to be back doing an episode together. Hi, Mina.
Hi, Nikki. I feel like it's such an improvement in our lives that we're just back to doing this, you know? I'm really excited.
It is. It's been way too long. Obviously, like, we were able to get together regularly during the summer transfer window because we were doing things with Sky Sports. September's always a blur for me, Mina. I'm sure it's the same for you. Like, the season starts and then immediately the Champions League starts. You know, I've been very fortunate to get over to Naples and did a video postcard from there for the Champions League. But I know you've been non-stop with work as well these last few weeks, haven't you?
Yeah, also because it's been covering just different leagues. So it's been a little bit more like some weeks, it was like horrible. Last week I watched a lot of Premier League, right? And then when it came to Italian football, I was like, oh gosh, now I have to start watching all these games. And sadly, I decided to watch, some, like, luckily Inter had a good match, but I watched Juventus at Atalanta and thought, time to slice myself, like stab myself in the eye, So it's been like, I kind of feel like, also because I've got this article coming up on Bellingham, so I've been watching lots of Real Madrid. So I just kind of feel like a bit detached from the drama of Serie A football, if you want. And so that's been really hectic for me and trying to catch up on all of it as well,
You heard that, everyone. She's cheating on us with other leagues. And I'm going to ask you, Mina, when you're watching the Premier League, when you're watching La Liga, do you see a centre forward, one of the most beautiful centre forwards in European football, let's add, stepping in goal for the last 5 minutes of a game and then making a game-winning save? Don't get that in the Premier League, Mina.
No, you really don't. But I don't know why, but it's so Nikki to start off with Giroud. And I just don't know why, but it's also like the pronunciation of Giroud that it's always been like, I always worry how I say it because of the way that Nikki says it, because she always mentions the D, and then I'm like, is it Giroud or is it Giroud? And then you're just his biggest fan. Okay, I have to explain this. Last year, we had to do, Nikki invited me to do the Guardian top players in Europe. Yeah. And we had to list
top 100 in the world.
Top 100 in the world. And we had to list where all these players would end up. And the first thing she asked me is, where are you going to put Giroud? It's like the most important one for her, don't know how to explain. I mean, there was all these conversations of whether Messi should be up front or Mbappe or Benzema, because at the time they had won, the Champions League, and there's Mickey. So Giroud, where is he? In like top 20, top 40, wherever he should be? It was brilliant. And so, of course, when we are finally reunited for the pod, we will start this pod with Giroud as a goalkeeper.
Of course.
He was.
And the first thing to say is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, because honestly, like, I think I'm quite good with languages. Obviously, I've spoken Italian since I was quite young. I've had some sort of exposure to it, and that helps with then like learning other languages. And so I did well at French at school. I did well with a little bit of Spanish that I learned. But it's really funny you said that about the Giroud, because I know that even though I did well in my grades in French in school, I was always getting stick for my accent from my teacher. Like, he was always giving me a hard time about my French accent. So yeah, wrong, but that's just how I am.
Is that like COVID?
COVID. Yeah, COVID. I still don't know which of those is right. I just use both. Yeah, look, I do think he's such a particular character. I wrote about him for my Guardian column this week, and the reaction you get in the comment section, I think, just speaks to this particular hold he has on some fans as just being this sort of odd blend of, yes, he's obviously brilliantly talented. He scored some hugely important goals. He scored crucial goals for Milan, winning the Scudetto. He's still scoring goals at 35 years old. But he's also got this slightly sort of workman-like quality to him, where he can go to a World Cup and not score a goal, but win it and be like, yeah, well, that's okay, because I won the World Cup and I was important to it, even though I didn't score a goal and I'm a centre-forward. And I think there's always been that sort of, despite being a very, very handsome man, despite being a good goal scorer, he's got a certain everyman quality to him. Certainly when you compare him to the Mbappes of the world, I think of Mbappe because he plays them obviously for the national team, or when you compare him to a Haaland or an Osimhen, the superhumans. He's not a superhuman. He's not particularly fast. He's not particularly dominant in any sort of single way that some strikers are, but he just has been so consistently productive and won so much. And so for him to end up being the one who goes in goal, and the story of how he goes in goal is great, by the way, because Christian Pulisic says, well, actually, I've played in goal a bit. I don't mind doing it.
You just know he was desperate to do it.
Well enough.
Yeah. And I feel like Pulisic was really upset in all of this. Like, I wanted to be there.
I think Pulisic has a cousin who's a goalkeeper as well. Is it William Pulisic, I think, as well? So I don't know how much experience he's got in goal, but I suppose you might get some unimpressed Genoa fans pointing out that he did quite a good job of using his arm to control the ball in the build-up to the goal he scored in this game, Christian Pulisic. So handling the ball comes naturally. But Giroud does make a save at the end of the game from Puskas. It's a real sort of close your eyes and throw yourself at the ball and swing an arm at it. Can't see what's happening, but got away with it moment. And then he does better on the second ball because he does sort of jump up and jumps on it. But it just adds to this iconic moment. And Milan did a brilliant job. Milan have done really well on this sort of thing as a club, I think, in the last couple of years, of playing on the moments and the memes, and immediately moved him on their official website from a striker to a goalkeeper in the squad list, and started selling the home goalkeeping shirt with his name on. That sold out in less than 12 hours. They sold out every size of their home goalkeeping shirt was sold out because people were buying it to print Giroud's name on it. So an iconic moment and quite a good result, Mina. They've now won 7 out of 8 games and are top of the table, Milan.
Okay, so just a few things to say to you. I don't know, but if you go on dating apps, men always tell you that if they're under 5'10", then nobody picks them. So I'm just wondering, does Pulisic, would he get picked on these dating apps if he notes down his height? And then is Giroud like everyone's favorite, right? Because he's so tall. And also I love when Giroud goes in it, because you could see he's like kind of like, oh, my face, but I'm just going to go for it anyway. Like I love that about him. And it was like a terrific save, to be honest with you. Although Goodmanson was really unlucky as well with hitting the crossbar from the free kick just before. And he said that, he's like, I got lucky in this. So, Yeah, like it was a brilliant moment. I mean, what a game to have two of your goalkeepers sent off and to have a whole game onto itself in the last 10 minutes. It's just, honestly, it was brilliant entertainment. I mean, one of the best matches. But yes, I also love that Milan are basically part club, part entertainment company, and they're even down in like tax and accounting as an entertainment company as well. And so obviously they're going to make the most of like selling a shirt as soon as possible to like make dinero, like bring the dollar in. But it was something that I'd honestly go and buy as well, because So do you remember, Nikki, we had this conversation actually via postcards, but it was after the derby, and I was really, really upset about how much flack Pioli and Milan were getting. And they rightfully did a terrible job, and you rightfully pointed out like how tactically poor they were in that match and the decisions that they chose. And I guess what I've always understood is that it was worth a punt to go toe-to-toe to see what your players are capable of doing. Lose this one because it was so early in the season with so many new buys that it would teach you a little bit more about your squad to then go and say, okay, now I know what I'm working with and this is how I can plan going forward. And I don't know why, I'm really sensitive about Pioli, a little bit more than I am probably about Max Allegri. Yeah, like Pioli really is my god, right? Like, as in, I just worship at this guy's altar. And I just never think that he does something without forethought. So it does seem dumb because it's like, how many derbies are you going to go and do this for? But at the same time, it's 10 players, and I just feel like he needed to understand his team. And ever since then, they don't have a hangover from that. They've been dominant in every way. They're above Inter. They're scoring with Okafor, and I just feel like we have a steadier and better understanding of the team, and more importantly, that mentality of, yeah, I'll go and goal and I'll save, and Pulisic wants to go, and we're going to argue over it, and this is our team, and we're going to fight to the end. It's something that we don't see from Inter.
I'm really sorry. I'm being distracted because Simon is writing into the Google document we use for our run sheet. Producer Simon, right as we're talking, and saying, just announced Euro 2032 will be held in Italy and Turkey. UEFA accepted the joint bid. That's fantastic news. So excited to hear that.
That's
It
brilliant.
was on the cards, but still to have that confirmed is brilliant. So just 9 years, and then we can get to...
if we qualify. Oh, no, we won't qualify.
Yeah, exactly. That's one pack.
I wish we held the World Cup. Then we could just always qualify.
But that is exciting news. It would be fantastic to have a major tournament in a new Italian city. There's so many great cities in Italy to visit and to have football in, and hopefully this will mean some extra work gets done on stadiums as well. We cross our fingers, we hope.
Istanbul is also a terrific city for a football match. I mean,
I've never been to Turkey. It'd be a great excuse. Hopefully I'll get to go before then, but I've never been.
Oh my God, Nikki, I want to take you now, just so you can see it. It's like a whole world unto itself. It's brilliant,
Let's go right now. Let's stop the podcast.
Come on, pack your bags.
I've slightly lost track of where we were, but yeah, I mean, I think I think Milan were lucky in this game. Obviously, the Pulisic handball to me is just a handball; it just is. And I'm surprised that the referee wasn't sent to the monitor by VAR. I think Milan have been very imperfect in this early start to the season, and yet I think it's not an accident that they've won 7 games. I think Tonali being gone. They've really reinvested that money smartly. Obviously, Pulisic has had a great start, but it's Musa who gives him the ball for that goal against Genoa. So Musa's been involved well. Loftus-Cheek, obviously, before he got injured, has started well. Reinders has started well. I do feel like they've really reinvested that money smartly, and that Pioli has done some good things. But because I think it's our first time together, we should widen out and talk about the title race, Mina.
Okay.
Despite themselves drawing this weekend, I still look at Inter as the team to beat in Serie A so far this season. They drew 2-2 with Bologna. They're 2 points behind Milan at the top of the table.
Today, we discuss Miro. Listen, when it comes to running client workshops, the dream, of course, is to get those creative juices flowing, right? But typically what ends up happening is thousands of hours get wasted because of poorly facilitated meetings. So I have Maya with me today. She's a consultant who runs Fortune 100 workshops, from leadership training to team building, and she has the insider tip on what makes things work. Maya?
Thank you, Jason. I've been doing this a long time. My number one tip is to bring everyone into that visual collaboration platform. So personally, I use Miro, and it's completely changed how I interact with the room. You have to give people a way to feel like they're in the room even when they're not. That's something you can do easily in Miro. Otherwise, they've seen the same slides and format 1,000 times.
Falling asleep, eyes glazing over, yawns, all that.
Exactly. When people follow me on the Miro board, everyone is literally going on a journey with me. We're adding thoughts, we're reacting, and we're voting for the best ideas. It's great.
Connective magic. I like it. That's MIRO.com.
Well, on paper, Inter is the best side. I mean, well, not on paper. In practice, Inter is the best side. When you watch them, they have far above and beyond more than any other side in Serie A. But it's that psychology that I don't trust. And it's going to be a hot take, and I get it. But I'm not Inzaghi's biggest fan. I think he's a great coach, but I still think he's early in his development. Because sometimes I just kind of feel like it's a little bit like you have to change something within the side, in the sense that this always keeps happening. You keep throwing points away against sides that you can beat, especially when you've gone like 2-0 up, right? Like this happened against Sassuolo. You score the goal and then you lose your momentum. And Bologna, who haven't scored goals in their last 3 matches, are able to do this to you. Suggests something of a mental fragility there that we've always known, because it's called Pazza Inter for a reason, right? But not being able to fix it, though, it's not just Inzaghi's duty, but it's been something that perhaps only Antonio Conte could do in recent years, was to make sure that they were always concentrated on what they needed to do. And I feel like when it's a big match for them, like it's the Champions League, Inter's there and they'll be brilliant. And defensively, they've been sound. But then the way they defended against Bologna, I mean, I don't know what was going on with Pavard, Bastoni, and Acerbi. I mean, Pavard especially. Actually, no, that's a lie, because Bastoni looked really confused as to who's defending. And there's problems there that if they do face teams that do have technical players that know how to really attack them and are not scared to attack them, I'm interested to see what happens. But likewise, when I look at Milan, I don't see them as being this team that, weirdly enough, they have been defensively strong recently. But I do think Milan have more of an unpredictability about it. And purely what I've always liked about him, which is why I've always rated him, is that he has been somebody who's tactically changed things up according to the game, whether it's playing Benacer as a trequartista or moving around like Tonali, who became almost a striker towards that Scudetto winning triumph. He will change and adapt his players accordingly. Whereas I feel like with Inzaghi, when stuff is not working, he doesn't always have a plan B that shows me he can change around the whole tactics to do something different. He mostly just changes players, right? And that's something that he was accused of doing last season. And so going forward, they have the best team. If they get to play their plan A, then they'll pretty much always win. But if a team responds to that, I worry about them. But there's really not that many, certainly I agree with you, the team that should win this.
On Milan's defending, Mina, there's something that I only became aware of in the last round. I think it might even have been our old friend Matteo Bonetti who tweeted it. I'm sorry if it was someone else, I'm giving credit in the wrong place. But this season, when Fikayo Tomori is on the pitch, Milan have only conceded 2 goals. So Fikayo Tomori, after a bit of a down season last season, has actually really sort of had a really good start to this season. One of the games that they conceded a goal in fact, is the game against Roma, where he gets sent off and they concede afterwards. So there's I suppose a bit of a one that undermines the statistic a little bit there, because of course it's still his fault for getting sent off. But that his form has been a big part of it. I do think that the team is playing in a slightly more balanced way than it did last season, and I think that Pioli absolutely gets all the credit for that. I think it's perhaps the untold part of their Champions League run so far, and I think they've been very unlucky to only have 2 points from the 2 Champions League games, which might be fatal because they're in a very difficult group, but it's still unlucky for them to have only drawn both those games when I think they could have won both of them. But defensively, they have been much more solid. It's surprising, given last season I was really worrying about Tomori, honestly. So it's surprising and encouraging to see him back playing well. I think the thing with Inter is just when you see them in the big games, they're so much on a different level.
Yeah.
I mean, you think they absolutely crushed Milan, they absolutely crushed Fiorentina. They could have beaten Benfica. I know it was only 1-0, but that could have been easily another 4-0 the way the game went. And Lautaro is, I think I asked you this in a video postcard not long ago, but he's playing right now at the level of one of the best players in the world. He just is. Whether he can do it all season is always the question with Lautaro, because in the past he's been hot and cold, but he's so good. And I think Milan, as much as I love Giroud, don't have that one transformative player that Lautaro can be. And clearly Marcus Thuram has been a delight. I love watching Marcus Thuram play.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm more somebody who watches Thuram, like prefers Thuram's style of play, but Lautaro Martinez, especially because in small spaces and the way that he just gives and goes, and he has really developed his game. I think he's been tremendous to watch this season. This was not his best game, I guess, in the sense that he gave away the penalty. But certainly having like Marcus Thuram and Lautaro Martinez as your starting duo is probably above and beyond what any other Serie A team has to really go forward. And their team has the best midfield and has the best attack. So this is why I agree with you. When you pit them, like they're the team that I can put against Man City and feel like they'll give them a good game. I can put them against any, obviously they did that in the Champions League already and they did brilliantly. But in most matches, you feel like Inter could really take on any side, whereas I would worry with Milan against, I don't know, Man City, let's say, or Juventus, who are the other Scudetto challengers, with Fiorentina, whoever. But Inter's the only side that I can say to you that if you ask me which side would you send out from Italy to face the big ones to represent Serie A, then it's Inter.
Yeah, and it's so. I mean, I guess we'll see. Maybe Milan will I dispel my doubts. My worry for Milan in their Champions League group, for instance, is that I think they've played 2 mostly good games and they could have 6 points, but now they've got 2. And I, in my mind, honestly struggle to see that defense containing Kylian Mbappe, and that is the question. Now, maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe that defensive solidity really can withstand Mbappe, but that is the question I've got in my mind.
Well, if Dan Burns can contain him and Kieran Trippier, I feel like, okay, I understand. As in my head, I was like, what? I mean, here's the thing. I really hope Enrique makes the same mistakes and plays a 4-2-4 against Milan, because that team was so obnoxiously overloaded and so devoid of any control in midfield. And if PSG do that, Pioli is number 1 at destroying them, because Pioli is better than Eddie Howe. So I wonder, because I really hope Enrique decides to do that again, because then I can, then it'll be really great if it's Newcastle and Milan that go through and PSG they get knocked out. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think those 2 games now for PSG and Milan determine the group, because I think from what I've seen so far this season, and in the Champions League and in the domestic performance as well, Borussia Dortmund are not good enough to finish in the top 2 in that group, in my opinion. So it does come down to 2 of the other 3. I think, watch me be proved wrong in the weeks to come. The other team we should be talking about with the Serie A title race, I mean, it clearly is the reigning champions, who lost 3-1 at home to Fiorentina this weekend. Really, I think we want to talk about Fiorentina here as well, because they were brilliant. But to sort of just continue that conversation about the title race first, we came into the season with concerns about Rudi Garcia. And I'm certain we're going to talk about those some more in a second. He had this not particularly impressive start. Then the club has this ridiculous social media meltdown with the extremely ill-advised TikTok videos and what I thought was poor handling of that story afterwards. I thought the club really didn't get ahead of that story well. But then the upshot of that is 2 wins in a row in which they score 4 goals. Victor Osimhen makes a sort of public statement showing his closeness to the team. They play against Real Madrid, and it's not a perfect performance. It's an uneven performance, but there was a part of that game against Real Madrid where they played probably their best football of the season.
Yes.
And Kvaratskhelia is on fire. And in the end, they really only lose that game to Real Madrid because Jude Bellingham is a transformative player. That's really why they lose that game in the end. So there was some positive there. And then they come back to Serie A and they play Fiorentina. And I I don't think you could call this undeserved at all. I don't think that Fiorentina stole anything. I thought they played with super aggressive, in your face, we're going to keep a high line for the whole pitch, even more than Madrid did, kept that high line up the pitch. And they disrupted those supply lines and they deserved to come away with the 3 points they did. So where is this Napoli? Like, where are they? Are they still a title contender? Is it all about Rudi Garcia? What's the deal, Mina?
I mean, firstly, I think that I have to agree with you against Real Madrid. I mean, Real Madrid and certainly my friends who are from there were very surprised at Napoli because obviously I had maybe not said the best things about them coming forward. And I was like, no, I mean, I just don't know if they'll give you a game because I was worried about what I'd seen under Rudi Garcia, even though they had started to perform better. But they were like, what are you talking about? They're really good. And I was like, yeah, they were really good. But there's this moment that sticks out in my head against that match. And obviously you went to it, but it's just this, Anguissa is at the back of Jude Bellingham and Jude Bellingham runs in front of him. So he forces him into a decision. Are you going to foul me or are you going to let me go? And Anguissa made the right decision because he had a back four in front of him, right? And so you would think that the defense line would stop Bellingham, but they didn't. And this is where there's two things that pop out to me in that sense, yeah? I mean, they're missing Kim Min-jae, but the defensive understanding of the team is really terrible. And Anguissa should have perhaps then found him if he had realized that this team is so defensively awkward at the back and not want to take a punt. But what I mean to say is that this is great coaching by Ancelotti because Bellingham is a superstar, but the way that he is performing at the moment in this free role shows you that he has been enhanced by clever coaching, which is the speed of thought. Because before Bellingham even took that shot, you thought, how have you even taken a shot when I haven't even realized on the pitch with my own eyes what's going on? And that is the speed of thought. I mean, obviously he's a great individual, but Victor Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia are not so far away from these guys. And yet I don't think they are being enhanced to the same level or trained to the same level. I mean, Kvaratskhelia is the most unpredictable player. And you just felt like they were exhausted from defending against him, but he's just shunted so out wide. And I just feel like Osimhen is alone, battling alone. And it bothers me because Osimhen is such a superstar. And I feel like if he's just allowed to just have some players that are close to him, the tactical decisions are bothering me from Rudi Garcia, to be honest with you. And the side is lacking this lucidity and the ball rotations and the circulations that made them so interesting. And I go back to my initial point, which is that they are playing as sort of players, that you put on a team. Okay, you're my winger, you're my striker, and not really understanding of the full tactics that it takes to blend it all together and make it a team. But on the other side, I'm also torn because I've always thought Napoli has a psychological problem. So when Rudi Garcia came out after this match against Fiorentina, a big loss once you've seen Italiano's fabulous football, and said it's a question of psychology, I can't disagree with that either. Because they've never been the best at these moments. They've always had problem within the side when the players don't like the coach or don't agree with what's going on. There isn't that discipline to keep going forward, I feel. And I like the players have to buy into it before they will follow you all the way. And they're clearly not buying into whatever Rudi Garcia is selling. So there is a problem of psychology and mentality because I don't think they like the coach. You could see that with the substitutions this time around. I think it was Politano and Osimhen. I mean, what were these decisions, right? It's madness what he chose to do against Fiorentina with the subs, but it's also the madness of how much the players felt it. So there's clearly a disconnect there. But on the other hand, I still feel like the team is lacking that lucidity. So it is a question of tactics too. But you sack Garcia, who's available right now to take. And this is, I mean, if it's Marco Giampaolo, I'm giving up on Serie A entirely. I'm not even going to watch. I'm not going to watch this Juventus side and Napoli under Marco Giampaolo. I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, to go back to the Bellingham thing, I remember watching and thinking as well, I think I said this on the Stand broadcast. I remember when Spalletti was still there last season, he described Leo Ostergaard as the best header of the ball he'd ever seen, ever in his career. And of course, Ostergaard scores that first goal, but what Spalletti didn't say is he's the best defender I've ever seen. And with the ball on the floor, I think he's still got a lot to learn. He's 23 years old, Ostergaard. And I think he's actually got scope to continue getting better. But he's not Kim Min-jae right now. And clearly that's been a big difference in this team. And it's not just that you've lost Kim Min-jae, you've also got Rahmani injured, you've got Juan Jesus injured. They are short at the back, and that is part of the story of how their seasons started. 100%. It would be crazy for it not to be. I also think there's potentially something in the decision to start Oliveira more often at left back instead of Mario Rui. I've not always been Mario Rui's biggest fan, but I've seen a few people making this point recently that when Rui was on the pitch, the distance in that left side between him and Kvaratskhelia was usually shorter than what it is with Oliveira, because Rui is more attacking. And I think that's definitely part of the magic mix that's gone wrong this season, is just the disconnect between the midfield and the defense, the midfield and the attack it feels wider, and it's why Osimhen always looks so isolated as well. So I think that those subtle changes as well can be harming the team. I think I'm sort of in two minds, because I'm not a big believer in Garcia, and he hasn't really done anything to prove me wrong. But I also think it's wrong to put it all at his doorstep. What's difficult in this particular game is you look across at the other bench and you think, well, it's the game show, isn't it, Mina? Here's what you could have won.
Yes.
If you just hired Vincenzo Italiano, who in my opinion is a brilliant coach, who did get everything right in this game. I mean, the decision to start Ikone ahead of Nico Gonzalez. Nico Gonzalez has been your top scorer this season, who's been brilliant. But you start Ikone, and Ikone, who, and we're not talking about someone who's famously brilliant at winning tackles, but he led both teams in number of tackles he won in this game, because part of it is just a fresh set of legs and a player who you've got into their head and given them the right attitude. And that's what he did. He's got into Ikone's head. He's asked him to do a particular job, and Ikone's done it brilliantly, pressing the team high up the pitch. And Italiano has really got, I feel like he's got that magic at the moment. He's making the right decisions again and again with Fiorentina. This is a huge win for them. And there's just so many players performing above themselves. I mean, Nico Gonzalez has been magnificent, but Bonaventura at 34 years old is playing some of the best football in his career, scored again in this game. Brecalo had a great game on the opposite wing as well. Obviously, I've just mentioned Ikone. There's so many players in this team that I think he's getting more and more from. And someone is soon going to give this guy the job. Sorry, Mina, I talked over you.
No, I was going to say, even Coyote, I was saying I really like him, but Italiano should have gotten the Napoli job, right? But he didn't. And it was almost like he wanted to show them what they're missing out on. But obviously he's not caring about that. He cares about Fiorentina first and foremost. I mean, he took risks with this, and yet he put three men at the back, and Napoli can still find their way through, right? And one thing I have to agree with Garcia is that 4 fouls committed during the entire game. I mean, it's true. Like, where's your desire to win? Like, this is why Milan right now stand out, right, between all the others, is that there is a clear desire within that team to win at all costs, which I don't see from all the other sides. But my question for you is, I know that you're a big fan of De Zerbi or Italiano. What would you do if you have a team?
I think Italiano is the coming man of Italian football. I do. I like De Zerbi a lot, and I'm excited for him that he's, as you were just talking about, Mina, gone. Was this before we started recording? I think it was. You were talking about people going abroad, footballers going abroad, and proving themselves. And I think that De Zerbi has gone to the Premier League and proved himself in a very different environment, and it's brilliant to see. But I really think Italiano is going to be
special, winning
titles in his career. I think that's going to happen. I think it's probably asking too much for him to win titles at Fiorentina, Mina, but could they be a top 4 contender at the end of the season? Is this sustainable?
I mean, with the team that they have, and considering they're stretched, and yet what is amazing is that look how many players he changed, right? He rotates, and they still understand the message. And it's not such a heavy scheme in the same way that I would have described sort of De Zerbi's style of football, which is very system orientated. You can see the players, the IQ has been elevated, and in a way that Spalletti does, right? Like it's a superpower to elevate the IQ of your players, where there's a constant outlet for the ball pass. Like, he has got a lot of technical players, and he's really taken the best out of that, because it's not a team that every time someone has a ball, they want the ball, they take the ball, they look for it's clever. It's so clever. I mean, he takes defensive risks, but they are measured risks as well that are worth it. And I mean, I wish him all the success in the world. I mean, we loved him back at Spezia. Like, we were his biggest fans, and honestly, like, I think that he should definitely get a big team.
Yeah, I think it's a long way to the end of the season, isn't it? And there are other teams that probably put ahead of them in that top four conversation. They still perhaps like goals from the centre forward position.
That's the thing.
Has been okay, but he hasn't had so many goals. So long way to go. Waiting to see more from Lucas Beltran as well, who they signed in the summer. But brilliant stuff from Fiorentina. Talking of teams who might get in their way to the top four, talking of teams that I know Mina has loved every minute that she's watched of them this season. Juventus, Mina, they did win again. They are third in the table. Why aren't you more excited about Allegriball?
Oh, stop it. it's you know what it is? It's weird. I was trying to think about why I was upset after this game, and it wasn't really about the style of play, because I'm just like, what are you going to do without Vlahovic and Kaiser? And I think what I'm mostly depressed about is that, like, I'm watching Bellingham, right? And watching some of these great players. And then you just look at Juventus's players and you think, I mean, it's so goddamn awful. Like, how did we get to the stage where, like, people are crying over Milik's jersey? Like, I just like, we were the side of Del Piero and Platini. And I just kind of feel like God love Milan. Like, thank you for scoring the second goal, but it's not everything about it is just so mediocre. Everything about it is so average. And when I think of all the other teams, weirdly, I do realize that I have a soft spot for Torino. I don't like seeing them lose. I don't know why. So I don't know how it's possible that I have a soft spot for Torino, but I have a soft spot for Torino. And I feel bad of them that this is just another derby that they've lost, and they're always from set plays. They always lose from set plays. So of the last 15 goals in the derby, 15 have come from free kicks or corners. I know, honestly, this is the best that you can hope for when you don't have your strikers available to you. I mean, at least it wasn't as boring as it was against Atalanta, but the team doesn't want the ball. This is the difference between looking at Fiorentina and you look at Juventus. Juventus are runners. They press you high and then they just want to run. They want to run into open spaces that are not always available to them. They are a team of runners. They want to beat you man for man. You look at Timothy Weah and that's what he wants to do. And if he can't take on his man, then he looks confused as to what his next move is. No one in midfield can take the ball and keep it. And so you've got Locatelli just like in a sea of runners, having no idea what he can do next, because as soon as he's pressured, there's no one that can take the ball and do something with it. There's nobody who knows what to do with the ball, barring him. And he is not the foremost greatest creator of chances, but he's better than what anyone else is in the middle. You've got McKennie and Rabiot. Like, I don't understand. This team is so poorly constructed in the sense that there's just only one type of player available to them. And that is a player that can run. And so it bothers me because I just don't know how much you can really squeeze out of this team. And I think that Allegri will squeeze out enough wins, and because they are defensively very secure and very solid, and that is a reaction to the hideous mistakes that they made against Sassuolo, and now they don't concede. But it is a team that cannot create when you don't have players who enjoy being on the ball and who have the technique to be on the ball. And you look at Fiorentina, you look at Bologna, and you see players who enjoy that, and it sucks that whoever built this team didn't think about all the things that are necessary to have a varied squad. And it doesn't help that Fagioli wasn't playing either, but I don't know how much he would have helped. And anyway, I'm just angry. But yes, they are doing well, and I believe they will.
Do you know what I
fight?
find?
Yes.
Do you know what I find frustrating with this team, Mina, is that actually they've played some in patches actually really entertaining football.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the first game of the season when they crushed Udinese 3-0, and then the game against Lazio when they won 3-1. There have been these moments when you see Chiesa and Vlahovic on the pitch together, and suddenly it's like, but it's almost like
but it's
they
running.
can do that when they, yeah, it is running. You're right. It's very one note, and I suppose in some ways actually it's quite like Conte's best teams at Inter, even when it was all about is it counter-attacking? No, it's not counter-attacking. It's partenza. It's fast break. It's different. But when teams let them do that to them, it can be devastating. But I do think as well, actually, this team has sometimes looked its best and certainly its most entertaining when it's embraced chaos.
Yeah.
But Allegri never wants to do that. He always wants to pull them back to structure. He always wants to pull them back to order. Because when they embrace that chaos, I think they've got several players who thrive in it. Chiesa, I think, is definitely a player who thrives in chaos. I think I've said before that McKennie is a player who thrives in chaos. There are certain players in that team who really rise to it. It was interesting in this game to see Away and McKennie both start because McKennie's been playing a lot at right wing back, where I actually think he's been quite good, not remarkable, but
I think he's been good.
He reminds me a lot of Cuadrado, actually, which is kind of what Allegri wants in that role. So interesting to see Away start outside him and have both of them in the team for this game. This was a very particular game. I mean, honestly, if you watch, if you haven't seen this game, all you really need to know is that every single time Juventus took a corner, Vanja Milinkovic-Savic in goal for Torino just disappeared, went for a run wherever he felt like it, and gave them another chance to score. But it was a win, and Juventus are joint third. And I think exactly as Mina just said, when you look at them, when you look at that sort of grim Allegri-ness of it, I find it very hard to see them finishing outside the top four. I think they will be good enough to do that. Whether or not they can fight for the title, I'm a bit less convinced.
I think it's important that they buy, obviously, with Pogba out. It's you like this cannot be the midfield going forward. Like there has to be a player who understands how to keep the ball, because there's so many of these players that are just one note, and they're all very linear in the way that they move. And unless it's going to be chaotic, which you just can't have, because you never can build towards something if you're a chaotic team. You can't have a project based on chaos, right? So unless you want to be a one-note team, then they have to make proper investments, and they've had a cash injection going forward. But they are saying that they'll look for somebody. But if it's Højbjerg, then stab me in my eye right now, because this cannot be the alternative to what we need right now. Most importantly, if Allegri goes, which this is the thing, you know how much I value Allegri, but Allegri is made for teams that are capable and older, and teams that are, I would say, like an Inter right now. That's when he gets the best out of them, because he can really push the side to win on all three fronts, or at least reach finals. He's not good with this type of squad. It's not the right match. This squad is not the right match for Allegri. Allegri is not the right match for this squad. So there's obviously a disconnect there, because he needs older players, experienced players, because he's about extracting the IQ levels of them. And these kids, they're just kids, right? So they need a system, and because they don't have the IQ or the experience to understand how to adapt to different things, they need a system right now to get a hold of. And so there's a problem there. But sorry, I do feel like this is Juventus, and I'm just going on about it. But I feel like it's remarkable that a team that only has one game a week still battling injuries. I just don't understand. I keep thinking it's one game a week and you'll have your players available, and it's the only team that is lacking like most of its squad. And I'm just thinking, what's going on, you know? But yes, it is. And I'm sorry, I don't love Szczesny at the back either. There's nothing about the squad that screams Juventus. Everything about the squad to me screams mid-team. And the only thing of actually who screams Juventus is Allegri, because at least he has some sort of gravitas to him, whereas the rest of them is so... It's all shambolic. It's all shambolic. So I don't know, but I feel like if it's up to me, I would sell the entire side. Honestly, I really would. So, and just buy completely different players. But congratulations on winning another derby. I mean, Torino were just hideous. So hideous. I mean, to the extent that Juric got emotional, but I feel sorry for him too. But you can't, Zapata's so isolated up front. But anyway.
I'm certain we could talk even more about Juventus, but I want to keep us moving, and I'd like to talk about the two Rome clubs, Mina. They both got actually pretty good wins this weekend. Roma won 4-1 away to Cagliari, which expected, perhaps because Cagliari are doing very, very badly this season, but needed certainly. And Lazio winning 3-2 against Atalanta. They've both had rough starts to this season. Right now, Roma are 10th in the table on 11 points. Lazio are joint 12th in the table on 10 points. That's with those wins they just got. I'm curious to know where you think these two teams are up to respectively. Obviously, you just talked about the fact that Juventus doesn't have midweek football. Both of Roma and Lazio do. I think that's certainly having an impact. For Roma, it feels like the headlines right now are Paulo Dybala injured again, which is, of course, an every season story. But Lukaku coming in, and I think he scored now 7 goals in his last 7 games. I know he's not your favourite, Mina, but you can't deny his impact. That is impressive numbers. At Lazio, they've had almost this sort of, I find it like it's almost like an inverse of Milan in the Champions League, where I'm not sure they've deserved to win either of their games, but they got the draw against Atletico with Ivan Provedel coming up and scoring in injury time. They got the 96th minute winner against away to Celtic with Pedro, and suddenly they're in quite a good position in that group. But it feels like almost inverse to what we normally expect with Sarri. Very clearly, the Champions League is what's exciting to him right now in the league. They're not doing great. The one sort of other note I had as like the big note coming out of this weekend for them was just Castellanos, of course, summer signing for them, and there was this supposedly this argument between Claudio Lotito and Maurizio Sarri after their league defeat to Milan about why isn't Castellanos playing more. Well, he started this game. He did score their second goal, so perhaps a step in the right direction for them. And Lotito certainly was gloating afterwards about how, look, this is what happens when you play the players who I signed.
Yeah, maybe you should sign some of your players in the early stage of the season, like Pioli requested of Milan. Pioli requested that of Milan, and they finished their business very early, so he had a squad to really work with from the start. And even then, you could see like it was hard to embed so many new players. You're asking a lot of somebody who has very complicated list of tactics in which the whole team has to partake in both the attacking and defensive phase. I mean, it's a very difficult style of play under Maurizio Sarri, but it's also one that requires such mental focus, which is why I was amazed, because I've always enjoyed their matches against Napoli, because it's almost like that's the only time they're completely mentally and entirely devoted to playing the match and being so concentrated. But it's hard to do. And it's very hard to do when you're losing experience in the likes of Milinkovic-Savic, and you need Luis Alberto to always come through. You need your older guys to be there. But Immobile is Immobile, and unfortunately he has been injured in and out of the squad. I know that he is someone that is talked about quite a lot on the squad, but Castellanos coming in his place really did a terrific job. But this is the thing with Lazio, they can be really good in spurts, right? They can be, because of the fact that it requires so much mental concentration. And that's always what's worried me under Sarri.
Okay, just going to say quickly, we had a little technical hiccup. I don't know if you'll experience it on your end when the final podcast comes out, but just in case you do, just wanted to acknowledge that we had a little glitch with our systems, but hopefully she'll be back and running again now. It has slightly caused me to lose the thread of where we were just up to with Roma and Lazio, Mina. But I don't know, which of these two teams do you think is in a healthier spot overall? Obviously, Roma, it just feels like these injuries are going to define so much, and that's always been true of Dybala. When he's around, it makes such a difference. But Lukaku, certainly those goals can't hurt. With Lazio, to me, when I look at Lazio, I still struggle to see the balance in this team without Milinkovic-Savic. I feel like there have been some better moments, there have been some worse moments, but there's just no unifying presence in the team that can match what he used to bring in terms of knitting everything together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Lazio can grow a lot more than they've managed recently, and I think their performances are better than what they have shown us. But I trust Roma more, to be honest with you, going forward, largely because I trust their attack. Obviously, you have Lukaku up front, who's already scoring. People were saying that he hasn't trained, but he had. That was the whole thing with Inter. That was why it was so unusual, because he was sending all these messages to Inter to update them with his training and how much he had dedicated his summer to that. So, which is why it was really surprising that he chose to, that whole thing happened, because it's like, why are you so much in contact with the gym team if you like the conditioning squad, if you didn't actually think you were going to go there? But you have him, you have Dybala, you have Pellegrini. I think Houssem Aouar is a wonderful midfielder. they've lost something on the defensive level, but they've also been playing with a lot of absences. And so, yes, they haven't been great. And there are question marks about Mourinho because of his season. But I do think based on some of the quality that they have within the side and the discipline that Mourinho can enforce, I trust them a bit more, but I don't trust them to make top four.
I think it's looking like a hard road for either of them already, just because of how competitive it's looking at the top of Serie A. I do think we've got a very healthy level of competition at the top part of the table. Obviously, we've talked about the two Milan clubs, we've talked about Juventus, we've talked about Napoli and Fiorentina. Haven't even mentioned Atalanta yet, who've had some ups and downs so far this season, but certainly some things to like there. Charles de Ketelaere has shown more in his time there than he did at Milan. Scalvini's had a brilliant start to the season. Coop Miners, there's been some really good stuff from Atalanta as well, and they were very much present in that defeat to Lazio. It was a game that they came back into from 2-0 down and was in the balance at 2-2. So definitely going to be competitive at the top of the table. Perhaps even a team like Bologna, who are in the middle at the moment, but have actually lost once all season, could yet find their way into that conversation as well. We're running slightly short on time now, Mina. I did want to have a very, very quick discussion about Italy with the two big Euro qualifiers coming up. They are playing Malta in Bari on Saturday, then they are away to England at Wembley on Tuesday. Obviously, it has to be 3 points against Malta. That's non-negotiable, but getting something from that game in Wembley would also be valuable, because it is looking like a tough battle for the second qualifying spot in this group, still with Ukraine and North Macedonia. I don't know if there's any sort of huge talking points, Italy, that you wanted to get at, Mina. I think things that jump out with the squad call-ups, exciting to see Bonaventura back in there after 3 years away. He's earned it with his performances this season for Fiorentina. The provocative one that I'd love to get into at some point, and maybe stays in the day, is I think it's time that we have a serious conversation about whether Vicario should be getting a chance to start ahead of Donnarumma in goal. I think it's time. I think Donnarumma, I'm not saying he needs to be out on his ear and never a part of it again, but I don't think his performances have been anywhere near at a level where you should think him untouchable. And Vicario has been really good for Tottenham so far.
I think let this be a lesson that I always encourage people to leave Italy and find spaces, but perhaps PSG is not the place to go. I don't know if you heard about Verratti and all his smoke. Yeah, I feel like Verratti has been was an excellent player and was excellent even for PSG, but I don't know if you read about Luis Enrique telling him about all the smoking and how he's the typical type of player that he absolutely hates. It's not the club that you would want your players to go to, because there's a lot of problems. But I do love the way that he spoke about Donnarumma as being this really good man who's obviously faced a lot of criticism from Milan, playing back in Milan for the quad. It's been hard for him. It's been really hard, But yes, I mean, Vicario, if we are going on meritocracy, then I think it's only fair that Vicario gets the chance to play. I love Udogi being called up. I feel like Spalletti he just looks like a guy that really, really appreciates the job. And that is what makes me so happy, because to see somebody who appreciates his job and being really eager to watch all the talent and who he's going to call up and how he's going to play it just makes me really happy.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Obviously, Udogi's brilliant to see him getting his chance, and absolutely very cheap. Oh, bless. Producer Simon's had a little visitor on screen, and it's now hard not to be distracted. Sorry, one of Simon's kids has just come in and we're recording on a video call, and it's hard to stay concentrated
without saying hello.
Exactly. I absolutely think that. I think the problems with this Italy team are the same ones we've been talking about forever. We're still not sure where the goals are coming from, and Retegui being injured doesn't help that picture. But there is some really good stuff in this Italy team too. And I think that Udogi, for part of the future of it, is obviously huge. The midfield, I think, has an abundance of options. And Sandro Tonali being off in Newcastle, as Mina says, can help as well with getting a different experience. Just on the Verratti point, if I wanted to clap back at Luis Enrique, if he's not Luis Enrique's kind of player, perhaps from watching Luis Enrique's PSG this season, I might respond, because he's a midfielder. Is that why he's not Luis Enrique's kind of player?
Oh, that's wonderful. I love a Nikki clapback. Can I just say I love a Nikki clapback?
But on that note, I think we're out of time for today. Sorry for not having even more time to talk with Mina, but we're gonna do this more regularly from now on. You'll have to bear with us while we work out a schedule for exactly how we do it. But we are all agreed that this podcast is more fun when we get to do it together. So we're working on it, and we will keep you updated as much as we can. In the meantime, do head over to seriechronicles.com/Patreon, where you can subscribe for the Tifosi membership with a free 7-day trial at the moment. And even as we come back to doing these together, the patrons will always get priority access to every episode and voice note before the rest of the world gets them, and no ads and bonus Patreon-only content. That's all we've got time for today, guys. Such a treat to be back in recording with Mina. Don't know exactly what the schedule is going to look like going forwards, but we both love doing these together, and it's much more fun this way. So we're going to work on making sure that we get to do episodes together going forward. Just bear with us while we work out the logistics of that, but a promise from us now that we will be doing that more. For now, thank you so much to all of our patrons for the recent feedback. It's been really helpful also in assuring us that this is the right direction we need to take and start doing more together. You can find us, as always, on Twitter at Nikki Bandini and at Mina Rizuki. And you can subscribe to Serie Chronicles on YouTube for clips and shorts of videos of the show. We're trying to do some more of that as well, so do check that out. And we'll see you for the next one. Bye.
Social Podcast Network.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of statistics, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and an enormous selection of players and stat options are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million football fans who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.